You want to build an empire? Then prepare your mind for war, because nothing is given and everything must be taken. Most men are born, live, and die without ever seizing their destiny. But you're not most men. You are here because you believe you were made for more. Let me be clear. I began with nothing. No wealth, no nobility, just ambition, sharp as a blade, and the will to conquer. If you want power, don't wait for permission. Take it. The battlefield of life rewards the decisive, the relentless, the disciplined. So stand up, raise your standard, and start building. Your empire begins today. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully, for what I am about to tell you was not learned in comfort, but forged in the fires of revolution and war. I speak to you not as a mere instructor, but as one who has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, who has commanded armies and reshaped nations. And it all began with a single, unshakable truth. The mind must be conquered before any battle can be won. You see, most men dream of empire, but they dream as children do, in fragments and fantasies, without understanding the price of greatness. They imagine the glory, but shrink from the discipline. They desire the crown, but fear the weight. This is why they remain forever in the shadows of giants, whispering of what could have been. But you are different. I sense in you the same hunger that once burned in me, the same relentless drive that transformed a minor nobleman's son. From Corsica into the Emperor of France, yet hunger alone is not enough. You must learn to command your thoughts with the same precision a general commands his army. Let me tell you something about the mind. It is both your greatest ally and your most dangerous enemy. When left undisciplined, it will betray you at the first sign of resistance. It will flood you with doubts, tempt you with comfort, and seduce you with excuses. This is why most men's ambitions die in their minds long before they fail in reality. The first step in building an empire is establishing absolute dominion over your thoughts. Every morning when you rise, you must gather your thoughts like soldiers on a parade ground. Inspect them, discipline them, train them to move as one unstoppable force toward your objective. I developed this practice early in my career, long before I held any real power. Each night I would spend hours studying military strategy, mathematics, and history. While others slept, I prepared. While others celebrated, I planned. Was it pleasant? No. Was it necessary? Absolutely. This mental discipline became my foundation, my fortress. You must understand, your mind will resist this discipline. It will cry out for rest, for distraction, for the thousand little pleasures that make men weak. This is where most fail. They cannot sustain the intensity of their own ambition. They cannot bear the solitude of their own thoughts. But you must learn to find comfort in this discomfort, to draw strength from solitude, to maintain clarity amid chaos. Here is what I want you to do. Begin each day by declaring your intentions with the same gravity as a general issuing orders before battle. Write them down, speak them aloud, make them real. Then, throughout the day, guard your thoughts, as you would guard a valuable territory. Every time doubt creeps in, crush it. Every time fear whispers, silence it. Every time laziness tempts you, remember this. Empires are not built by men who yield to their weaknesses. The mind, when properly commanded, becomes an unstoppable force. It turns obstacles into opportunities, defeats into lessons, and challenges into conquests. This is not mere motivation, this is mental warfare. And in this war, you must be both the general and the soldier, the strategist and the executioner. I will tell you something that few understand. True power begins in the moments no one sees, in the battles you fight against yourself, in the discipline you maintain when no one is watching, in the standards you uphold when compromise would be easier. Most men wait for inspiration. Warriors create it. Most men hope for opportunity. Emperors forge it. Most men wish for power. Leaders seize it. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in the commanding of one's mind. Remember this: every great achievement in history began as a thought properly disciplined and relentlessly executed. The French Revolution, my rise to power, the reshaping of Europe, all of these began not with armies or resources, but with the absolute command of one's own mind. So, I ask you, are you ready to begin this conquest? Are you prepared to wage war against your own weaknesses? To establish empire in your mind before you build it in the world? The choice is yours, but know this: the throne of greatness belongs to those who first learn to rule themselves. Your empire awaits, but it will remain forever a dream until you learn to command your mind with the authority of a conqueror. Begin now. Begin today. Begin with the understanding that every great revolution starts between your ears. The battle for your empire begins in your mind. Command it well. When I planned the invasion of Italy, I could see every mountain pass, every garrison, every possible point of resistance. My generals thought me obsessed, but I knew something they did not. Victory belongs to those who can see their empire before it exists. This is why today I will teach you the art of vision, not the weak, pleasant daydreams of the masses, but the ruthless, detailed planning of a conqueror. Let me be clear: vague ambitions are the refuge of cowards. I want to be successful. What does this mean? Nothing. It is a statement without power, a goal without coordinates. When I set out to conquer Europe, I didn't merely dream of victory. I saw every province, every alliance, every strategic point that needed to be taken. My vision was so detailed it haunted my sleep. This is what separates emperors from dreamers. A dreamer says, "I want to be rich." An emperor specifies the exact amount, the precise methods, the strategic partnerships, and the timeline. A dreamer says, "I want to lead." An emperor names the position, maps the path to power, identifies the allies needed, and calculates the cost in blood and gold. Your empire, whether it's in business, art, or actual territory, must be defined with military precision. Take out your maps now. Yes, literal maps of your domain. If it's business, draw your market territories. If it's influence, mark your spheres of power. If it's wealth, chart your financial campaigns. Leave nothing to chance, nothing to the fog of maybe. Here's how you must think. First, define the borders of your empire. What exactly do you intend to control? Be specific. In my campaigns, I knew exactly which territories I needed to secure to control Europe. Your empire might be different. Perhaps it's market share, perhaps it's artistic influence, perhaps it's political power. But you must name it, claim it, and map it. Second, identify your centers of power. In warfare, these are capitals and strategic strongholds. In your empire, these might be key partnerships, crucial skills, or vital resources. Mark them on your map. Know what you must capture, what you must defend, what you must develop. Third, anticipate resistance. Every empire faces opposition. On my campaigns, I could predict where armies would gather, where supplies would be weakest, where loyalty would waver. You must do the same. Name your competitors, map their strengths, identify their weaknesses, plan your counters before they move against you. Fourth, calculate your resources. This is where most fail. They launch their campaigns without counting the cost. I knew exactly how many men, how much ammunition, how many supplies each campaign would require. You must be equally precise. How much capital do you need? What skills must you acquire? Which allies must you cultivate? Write it down, all of it. Let me tell you something about vision that few understand. It must be both grand and granular. When I saw myself as Emperor of France, I didn't just see the crown. I saw the administrative systems, the legal codes, the educational reforms, the military structures. Every detail mattered. Your vision must be the same. This level of detail will overwhelm the weak. Good. Let them be overwhelmed. While they drift in their comfortable fog of someday, you will move with the precision of an army. Every step calculated, every move measured, every objective clear. Your vision must become your obsession. I spent countless nights poring over maps, calculating distances, estimating resources. This is not excessive. This is the price of empire. If your vision doesn't consume you, it won't convince others. If it doesn't burn in your mind, it won't burn in reality. Here's what you must do now. Take your empire and break it into provinces. If it's a business empire, these are your market segments. If it's an artistic empire, these are your areas of influence. If it's a political empire, these are your bases of power. Name them, map them. Know them as intimately as I knew the territories of Europe. For each province of your empire, set clear metrics of conquest. How will you know when you've taken territory? What marks your dominion? In battle, it's clear. You hold the ground or you don't. In your empire, you must be equally clear. Market share percentages, revenue targets, influence metrics. Name them, claim them. Remember this. A vision without detail is merely a wish. A dream without coordinates is just sleep. Your empire must be so clearly defined that you could walk through it blindfolded, so precisely planned that others can see it through your eyes, so meticulously mapped that every step toward it can be measured. The world belongs to those who can see empires in empty spaces, who can look at blank maps and draw destiny upon them, who can convert vague ambitions into military-grade objectives. Now, Commander, define your empire. Not with the gentle brush of dreams, but with the sharp lines of conquest. Make your vision so clear that it becomes inevitable, for when you can see it with this level of clarity, others will have no choice but to see it too. The map of your empire awaits your orders. Draw it with the precision of a general, the vision of an emperor, and the ruthlessness of a conqueror. In 1796, when I led the army of Italy across the Alps, I made a decision that would define not just the campaign, but the very essence of victory. I ordered the bridges burned behind us, not because I was certain of victory, but because I understood a fundamental truth. Greatness requires the elimination of retreat. Let me share with you a secret that separates conquerors from the conquered. The most dangerous enemy you face is not external resistance. It's the temptation of escape, the warm embrace of comfort that whispers, you can always go back. This is the poison that kills empires before they're built. You see, most people keep their bridges intact. They maintain their backup plans, their safety nets, their comfortable excuses. If this doesn't work out, I can always stop. This sentence is the death of greatness. This thought is the assassin of empire. This comfort is your enemy. When I took command of France, I didn't request power. I seized it. I didn't ask for permission. I created fact. The bridges of return were not just burned, they were obliterated. There was no going back to being a mere general, no return to simple military life. It was empire or death. This is what I demand of you now. Burn your bridges, not metaphorically, not partially, but completely. Whatever empire you're building, be it in business, art, politics, or influence, you must make retreat impossible. This is not reckless abandon. This is strategic commitment. Here's how you burn your bridges with the precision of a military campaign. First, identify your escape routes. These are the comfortable alternatives that weaken your resolve. The easy jobs you could fall back on, the mediocre relationships you maintain just in case, the half-hearted pursuits that drain your focus. Name them, list them, then prepare for their destruction. Second, create situations of magnificent pressure. Announce your intentions publicly. Invest your resources so deeply that retreat becomes more painful than advance. Put yourself in positions where success is the only acceptable outcome. When I declared myself emperor, it was not just a title, it was a point of no return. Third, eliminate your backup plans. This might sound contrary to conventional wisdom, but understand this: backup plans are dream killers. They divide your focus and weaken your resolve. When my armies entered new territories, They carried only what they needed for victory. The very possibility of retreat was removed from the equation. Let me tell you something about commitment that few understand. It's not about feeling ready. It's about making ready impossible to avoid. When you burn your bridges, your mind sharpens, your senses heighten, your resolve hardens. This is not desperation. This is power. I've seen it countless times. The soldier fights differently when he knows he cannot retreat. The leader commands differently when his own survival depends on victory. The entrepreneur thinks differently when failure means total ruin. This is not about being reckless. It's about being absolute. You must understand, the world makes way for those who have burned their bridges. It respects those who have made retreat impossible. It yields to those who advance with the full force of necessity. When you eliminate the possibility of retreat, you multiply the probability of victory. Here's what happens when you truly burn your bridges. Your mind, once clouded by alternatives, becomes laser-focused on solutions. Your creativity, once dormant in comfort, explodes with necessity. Your resolve, once weakened by escape routes, becomes unbreakable. I will tell you now what I told my generals. The size of your success will be measured by the size of your commitment. Half measures produce half results. Partial commitment breeds partial victory. But total bridge-burning commitment, this is the foundation of empires. Consider this. Every great achievement in history was accomplished by someone who had burned their bridges. The great explorers burned their ships. The great revolutionaries burned their past. The great innovators burned their fallback plans. They made retreat so costly that advance became the only logical choice. You must do the same. Whatever empire you're building, make retreat more painful than conquest. Make failure more frightening than the challenge ahead. Make your commitment so absolute that the universe has no choice but to yield to your advance. Remember, the world does not reward those who give themselves escape routes. It does not bow to those who maintain backup plans. It does not yield to those who approach greatness with one foot still in mediocrity. Your bridges are waiting to be burned. Your retreat routes are begging to be destroyed. Your backup plans are ready to be sacrificed on the altar of your ambition. The question is not whether you should burn them. The question is whether you have the courage to light the flame. Burn your bridges with the same determination with which I burned mine. Make retreat impossible. Make advance inevitable. For when the bridges behind you are in flames, the path before you becomes remarkably clear. The time for half measures is over. The era of backup plans must end. Your empire awaits, but it will only yield to those who advance with a full force. A bridge-burning commitment. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, for this lesson cost me an empire to learn. Emotions are treacherous advisors, but discipline is an unfailing general. In the battle for greatness, the heart must bow to the will, or all is lost. Let me speak plainly. I have seen more empires fall to emotional weakness than to enemy strength. I have watched great men crumble, not because their strategies were flawed, but because their emotions betrayed them. This is a mistake you cannot afford to make. When I was exiled to Elba, do you think I gave in to despair? When faced with the combined armies of Europe, do you think I yielded to fear? No, because I understood something fundamental. Emotions are like weather, changeable, unreliable, and irrelevant to the mission at hand. Here is your first command. Stop leading with your heart. The heart is a soldier, not a general. It must be trained, disciplined, and sometimes sacrificed for the greater victory. When I planned my campaigns, I did not ask myself what I felt like doing. I asked myself what victory required. Most men live as slaves to their emotions. They work when they feel motivated. They advance when they feel confident. They retreat when they feel afraid. This is why most men remain common. This is why most dreams remain dreams. This is why most empires exist only in imagination. Let me teach you the art of emotional discipline, as I learned it on the battlefield. First, understand that every emotion is a suggestion, not a command. Fear suggests retreat, but discipline can command advance. Doubt suggests surrender, but discipline demands persistence. Anger suggests rash action, but discipline insists on strategic response. Second, establish your protocols. In the military, we have procedures for everything, from loading cannons to deploying troops. Your emotional discipline must be equally systematic. When fear strikes, what is your protocol? When doubt emerges, what is your response? Write these down. Make them law. Third, train daily in emotional control. Each morning I would review battle plans regardless of my mood. Each decision was made based on strategy, not feeling. This is your drill. Make 10 decisions every day based purely on logic, in direct opposition to your emotions if necessary. Here is what separates emperors from ordinary men. An emperor's discipline overrides not only his own emotions, but the emotional contagion of those around him. When my armies faced defeat, they looked to me not for emotional comfort, but for unwavering command. This must be your standard. You must understand. Discipline is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. When I won victories, I celebrated briefly. When I suffered defeats, I analyzed coldly. Neither success nor failure was allowed to disrupt the iron routine of empire building. Let me tell you something about emotional discipline that few understand. It is not natural. It is not comfortable. It is not meant to be. It is a daily battle against your own nature. But this battle must be won, for it determines all other victories. Your emotions will rebel against this discipline. They will demand attention, demand expression, demand control. This is where most fail. They negotiate with their feelings instead of commanding them. An emperor does not negotiate. An emperor rules. Consider this. Every great decision I made, every territory I conquered, every alliance I forged was done, not because it felt right, but because strategy demanded it. The emotions came later. The satisfaction came after victory. The pride came after achievement. But first came the disciplined execution of what needed to be done. Here is your battle. Plan for emotional discipline. First, identify your emotional weak points. Where do your feelings most often betray your goals? In negotiations? In conflict? In daily execution? Name these battlegrounds. They require your strongest fortifications. Second, establish your command center, that part of your mind that remains cold, calculating, and clear regardless of emotional weather. Strengthen it daily through meditation, through strategic planning, through unflinching self-analysis. Third, create your emotional protocols. When anxiety strikes, you will. When doubt emerges, you will. When anger flares, you will. Make these responses automatic, military in their precision. Remember this: the world responds not to what you feel, but to what you do. Your emotions are irrelevant to the marketplace. Your feelings matter, not to the battlefield of business. Your moods mean nothing to the march of history. I will tell you now what I told myself in my darkest hours. The size of your empire will be determined by the strength of your discipline. Your achievements will rise exactly as high as your emotional control allows. No more, no less. This is not a popular truth. The world will tell you to follow your heart, to trust your feelings, to be authentic in your emotions. This is advice for those content with mediocrity. Emperors follow strategy. Emperors trust discipline. Emperors are authentic to their mission, not their moods. Your emotions are waiting to be conquered. Your feelings are ready to be commanded. Your heart is prepared to serve rather than lead. The only question is, are you ready to establish the iron discipline that empire requires? Make discipline your general. Make strategy your counselor. Make emotions your soldiers. For when the heart learns to march to the drum of discipline, no victory is beyond reach. Let me tell you about the true price of empire, not in gold, but in blood and sweat, and countless hours that history never records. When I built France into an empire, every victory, Every reform, every advancement was paid for in the currency of sacrifice. This is the lesson you must understand today. Greatness is built not in grand moments, but in brutal daily labor. Most dream of empire, but few understand its construction. They see the palace, but not the quarry. They admire the crown, but ignore the forge. They desire the throne, but despise the scaffolding. This is why they remain dreamers while others become emperors. Listen carefully. Every empire is built brick by brick, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice. When I reorganized France's legal system, it wasn't done in a day of inspiration. It was countless nights of study, endless debates, meticulous attention to every article and clause. This is the price of lasting power. Your empire, whatever form it takes, demands the same payment. Every skill must be mastered. Every connection must be forged. Every advantage must be earned. There are no shortcuts to greatness, no elevators to the summit of power. There's only the daily climb. Here is how empires are truly built. First, understand that every day demands its tribute of blood, not literal blood perhaps, but the essence of your effort, your focus, your energy. When I trained as an artillery officer, I gave my days to mathematics, my nights to strategy. Every hour was an investment in empire. Second, establish your daily disciplines. Mine were rigid. Wake before dawn, study for 2 hours, review military reports, conduct inspections, plan campaigns, meet with advisors, study maps until midnight. Your empire will demand its own rituals. Name them, schedule them, execute them with military precision. Third, accept that comfort is your enemy. I slept on battlefields, ate soldiers' rations, endured the same hardships as my men, not because I had to, but because greatness demands intimacy with discomfort. Your path will require similar sacrifices. Welcome them. Let me tell you something about building that most never understand. The pain is the point. The struggle is not an obstacle to greatness, it is the forge of greatness. Every difficulty, every setback, every moment of exhaustion is laying another brick in your empire. Most people seek to avoid pain. They look for easier paths, simpler solutions, comfortable compromises. This is why most people's dreams remain forever dreams. Empire is built by those willing to bleed for it, to sacrifice sleep for it, to endure countless small deaths in service of a greater birth. Consider this. Every significant achievement in history was built by someone willing to pay its price in full. The great cathedrals were built by men who knew they wouldn't live to see them completed. The great innovations came from minds that sacrificed everything else for their vision. The great empires were built by leaders willing to give their lives to their creation. You must embrace this truth. Every brick in your empire will cost you something. Every advancement will demand its price. Every victory will require its sacrifice. This is not unfortunate. This is necessary. This is not punishment. This is the process. Here is your building protocol. First, identify the non-negotiable daily tasks that will build your empire. These are your foundation stones. For me, it was military training, strategic planning, and political maneuvering. For you, it might be skill development, relationship building, market analysis. Name them, schedule them, execute them regardless of mood or circumstance. Second, calculate the true cost of your ambition, not in money, but in time, in energy, in sacrifices. What must you give up? What comforts must you surrender? What pleasures must you postpone? Be specific. Be brutal in your honesty. Third, establish your payment schedule. Empire is built in daily installments of effort and sacrifice. How many hours will you give each day? What comforts will you sacrifice each week? What pleasures will you defer each month? Write it down. Make it law. Remember this: the size of your empire will be determined by the price you're willing to pay, not in a single grand gesture, but in countless small sacrifices. Not in one heroic moment, but in thousands of unglamorous hours. I will tell you now, what I discovered in my campaigns. The greatest barrier to empire is not external resistance. It is internal reluctance to pay the full price of greatness. The unwillingness to bleed enough, sacrifice enough, give enough. This is not a popular truth. The world will sell you dreams of instant success, of overnight empire, of painless victory. These are lies that keep the masses mediocre. Real empire, lasting empire, is built with blood and sweat and sacrifice, one brick at a time. Your empire awaits its construction. Every day you either lay new bricks or you don't. Every hour you either pay the price of greatness or you don't. Every moment you either build your empire or you build excuses. Choose the path of blood and bricks. Choose the way of daily sacrifice. Choose the road of relentless construction. For when you're willing to pay the full price of empire, brick by bloody brick, no power on earth can deny your rise. Listen to me now, for I am about to share with you one of the most crucial military secrets I employed in building my empire, the art of strategic silence. When I planned my greatest campaigns, my enemies heard nothing until my armies were at their gates. This is not mere tactics. This is the fundamental law of power. Most fools trumpet their ambitions to the world, broadcasting their plans like town criers. They mistake attention for achievement, noise for progress. This is why they fail. This is why they never build anything lasting. They alert their enemies before their forces are ready. Let me be clear. Your greatest victories must be won in silence. When I prepared to take Egypt, Europe heard only whispers. When I planned to seize power in France, I moved like a shadow through the corridors of influence. The time for noise comes only at the moment of strike, never before. Here is the strategic doctrine of silence that you must master. First, understand that every word you speak is intelligence for your enemies. Every plan you reveal is a weapon you surrender. Every ambition you broadcast is an advantage you lose. I won battles before they began because my enemies revealed their intentions while I guarded mine. Second, learn the power of misdirection. When I prepared to strike east, I would often make noise about moving west. While others discussed their real plans, I fed false information to the masses. Your competitors should never know your true direction until it's too late to counter. Third, build your forces in shadow. Whether you're developing skills, gathering resources, or forming alliances, do it quietly. I trained my army in secret, developed my strategies in isolation, and strengthened my position without fanfare. Let your preparation be invisible. Here's what separates true strategists from amateurs. The amateur seeks validation at every step. The strategist seeks only victory. The amateur builds audiences. The strategist builds armies. The amateur creates noise. The strategist creates results. Consider this. Every significant power play in history was conceived in silence. The greatest business coups, the most effective political maneuvers, the most profitable market moves, all were planned in quiet rooms away from prying eyes and eager ears. You must understand, silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is the presence of strategic advantage. When you work in silence, you deny your enemy's intelligence. When you move in silence, you maintain the element of surprise. When you build in silence, you control the narrative. Let me tell you something about strategic silence that few understand. It requires immense discipline. The urge to speak of your plans, to seek approval, to signal your intentions, these are weaknesses that must be conquered. I trained myself to find satisfaction in secrecy, pleasure in privacy. Here is your protocol for strategic silence. First, audit your current information leaks. Where are you revealing too much? Which platforms expose your plans? Which relationships compromise your secrets? Identify these vulnerabilities and seal them. Second, create your shadow campaign. Every public move should hide 3 private moves. While the world sees you moving in one direction, your real advance should be elsewhere. I would openly prepare for one battle while secretly positioning for another. Third, establish your strike protocols. Determine exactly when and how you will. Break your silence. The moment of revelation should be chosen with tactical precision, timed for maximum impact, and minimum response time from your competitors. Remember this: the noise you make should be proportional to the power you've built. Small achievements require no announcement. Moderate victories deserve modest noise. But when you've built something truly magnificent, when your position is unassailable, then you may thunder. I will tell you now what I learned in countless campaigns. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the most powerful. True power moves in silence, strikes with precision, and lets results make the noise. Your competitors should hear your success before they hear your strategy. This is not about being secretive. It's about being strategic, not about being silent for silence's sake, but about controlling information as carefully as you control territory. Every piece of intelligence you reveal should serve a specific purpose in your greater campaign. Here's the paradox of power that you must grasp. The more significant your moves, the quieter your preparation must be. When I planned to become emperor, it was my most silent campaign. When I prepared to reshape Europe, my plans were known only to my closest advisors. Your silence must become your sanctuary. Your privacy must become your power. Your discretion must become your defense. Let others chase attention while you chase advantage. Let them seek validation while you seek victory. Let them make noise while you make progress. But when you strike, when your position is secured, your forces are ready, and your victory is certain, then you may unleash the full thunder of your achievement. Then you may let the world feel the force of what you've built in silence. The timing of noise is as crucial as its absence. Too early, and you alert your enemies. Too late, and you miss the impact. The perfect moment is when your success is irreversible, when your position is unassailable, when your empire is established beyond doubt. Remember, history remembers achievements, not announcements, results, not rhetoric, impact, not intentions. Your empire must be built in silence, revealed in strength, and remembered for its victories. Your silent campaign awaits. Your strategic silence begins now. Move like a shadow, build like a ghost, and strike like thunder. For when you master the art of strategic silence, your enemies will hear of your victory only after it's too late to prevent it. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the secret that transformed me from a defeated general into an emperor. The art of converting defeat into doctrine. When Russia forced my retreat, when England resisted my advances, when allies betrayed my trust, each defeat became a lesson, each failure a foundation for future victory. Most men experience defeat as an ending. They are broken by it, defined by it, haunted by it. This is why they remain forever in the shadow of their failures. But I tell you now, defeat is not your enemy. Ignorance is. Loss is not your destroyer. Waste is. Let me be clear. Every defeat carries within it the seeds of future victory, but only for those who know how to harvest them. When I lost battles, I didn't just count the cost. I studied the cause. Every retreat became a research project. Every failure became a field manual for future success. Here is how you transform defeat into doctrine. First, you must develop the warrior's perspective on failure. When I lost the Battle of Acre, I didn't waste time with self-pity. I immediately began analyzing, why did our siege tactics fail? What intelligence did we miss? How did the enemy's defense succeed? Every question became a lesson. Second, establish your defeat protocols. Just as armies have procedures for victory, you must have procedures for defeat. Mine were rigid. Document everything, analyze every factor, extract every lesson, create new strategies, test new approaches. Defeat should trigger not depression, but investigation. Third, maintain your strategic database. Every failure must be recorded, every lesson cataloged, every insight preserved. When I planned later campaigns, I would review these lessons first. Your defeats must become your most valued strategic library. Here's what separates masters from amateurs. The amateur sees defeat as punishment. The master sees it as education. The amateur seeks to forget failure. The master seeks to understand it. The amateur is diminished by defeat. The master is developed by it. Consider this. Every significant innovation in military history came from studying defeat. The greatest advances in strategy, tactics, and technology emerged not from victory, but from failure analyzed and understood. Your defeats are not your shame. They are your strategic advantage. You must understand, defeat is expensive education, but education nonetheless. When I lost in Egypt, the cost was enormous, but the lessons about supply lines, desert warfare, and local resistance became priceless doctrine for future campaigns. Never waste a good defeat. Let me tell you something about failure that few understand. It reveals what victory conceals. Success can make you blind, but defeat forces you to see. When everything works, you learn little. When everything fails, you learn everything. If you have the courage to study the lessons, here is your protocol for converting defeat into doctrine. First, establish your defeat analysis system. What exactly will you record? What factors will you examine? What questions will you ask? Create a formal process for extracting maximum learning from minimum failure. Make it as rigorous as a military debriefing. Second, develop your learning loops. How will you implement these lessons? How will you test new approaches? How will you verify that you've actually learned? I would run military exercises specifically to test lessons learned from defeat. Your approach must be equally systematic. Third, build your strategic recovery procedures. How quickly can you move from defeat to analysis? From analysis to new strategy? From strategy to renewed advance? Speed matters. The faster you convert defeat into doctrine, the less ground you surrender to failure. Remember this: the size of your eventual victory will be determined by how you handle your current defeats. Those who learn fastest win most. Those who extract most wisdom from failure achieve most success. Those who convert defeat into doctrine build lasting empires. I will tell you now what I learned from my greatest defeats. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is an ingredient of success. Every defeat I suffered made me stronger, but only because I refused to let any failure be merely a failure. Each one had to yield its lesson. This is not comfortable work. Analyzing defeat requires you to face your errors, acknowledge your miscalculations, confront your weaknesses. This is why most avoid it. This is why most remain weak. This is why most never rise above their failures. Your defeats are waiting to become your doctrine. Your failures are ready to become your foundation. Your setbacks are prepared to become your strength. But this transformation requires more than experience. It requires analysis. More than survival, it requires study. Here's the iron law of strategic development. You will be defeated. This is certain. The only question is, will your defeats destroy you or develop you? Will they become final verdicts or first drafts? Will they remain wounds or become weapons? Make defeat your teacher, not your master. Make failure your education, not your identity. Make loss your laboratory, not your tomb. For when you learn to convert every defeat into doctrine, you transform the very thing that destroys others into the force that distinguishes you. Remember, history remembers victories, but empires are built on lessons learned from defeat. Your greatest defeats, properly processed, will become your greatest advantages. Your darkest failures, thoroughly analyzed, will light your path to future triumph. Your defeats await their transformation. Your failures await their conversion. Your setbacks await their strategic rebirth. Start now. Begin the analysis. Extract the lessons. Create the doctrine. For when you master the art of learning from defeat, no failure can stop your rise. Listen well, for I am about to share with you the principle that transformed France from a chaotic republic into a magnificent empire, the power of ruthless standards. When I took command, mediocrity was not merely common, it was accepted. This is the death of empires. This is the poison that kills greatness before it begins. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire will rise exactly as high as your standards demand and fall exactly as low as your standards allow. When I reorganized the French military, I didn't just change tactics. I changed what was acceptable. Mediocrity became treason. Excellence became survival. Most people speak of high standards, but live with low ones. They dream of excellence, but tolerate mediocrity. They desire greatness, but accept average. This is why they remain forever in the realm of the ordinary. This is why their empires exist only in their imagination. Here is how you establish standards. That forage empires first, understand that standards are not goals, they are laws. When I demanded precision from my artillery units, it wasn't a suggestion, it wasn't an aspiration, it was a requirement for continued existence. Your standards must carry the same weight. They must be non-negotiable. Second, begin with yourself. My officers knew that I worked longer hours, studied harder, and demanded more from myself than from anyone else. Your standards must start with your own performance. Every expectation you enforce on others must first be exceeded by yourself. Third, make excellence the only acceptable currency. In my army, adequate performance meant defeat. In my government, satisfactory effort meant removal. Your empire must operate on the same principle. Only excellence survives. Only the exceptional advances. Only the extraordinary thrives. Here's what separates emperors from dreamers. Dreamers have high hopes. Emperors have high standards. Dreamers wish for better. Emperors demand better. Dreamers accept what comes. Emperors create what must be. Consider this. Every great empire in history was built on uncommon standards. The Roman legions, the British Navy, the French Grande Armée, these weren't just organizations. They were standards made manifest. They succeeded not because they hoped for excellence, but because they required it. You must understand, standards are not about perfection, they're about progression. When I first took command, my army wasn't elite, but my standards were. Every day, every drill, every maneuver had to be better than the last. Constant improvement was not a goal, it was the minimum requirement. Let me tell you something about standards that few understand. They are either rising or falling. There is no maintenance level. The moment you try to maintain standards, they begin to drop. This is why I constantly raised requirements, increased expectations, demanded more. Stagnation is death. Here is your protocol for establishing empire-building standards. First, audit your current standards. Where have you been accepting mediocrity? Where have you been tolerating average? Where have your requirements been too low? Name these weaknesses. They are the gaps through which greatness escapes. Second, establish your new baseline. What was exceptional yesterday must become minimal today. What was amazing last month must become average this month. What was impossible last year must become standard this year. Write these new standards down. Make them law. Third, create your enforcement mechanisms. How will you measure adherence? How will you test compliance? How will you ensure execution? When I led armies, inspection was constant, measurement was continuous, accountability was immediate. Your empire requires the same rigor. Remember this, the gap between where you are and where you could be is always a standards gap, not a talent gap, not a resource gap, not an opportunity gap. When I transformed France's military, I didn't get better soldiers. I enforced better standards. The men didn't change. The requirements did. I will tell you now what I learned from building an empire. Your standards are your destiny. Every achievement, every advancement, every conquest begins with what you're willing to demand, first from yourself, then from others. The height of your empire will be determined by the height of your standards. This is not comfortable work. Raising standards means raising pressure. It means increasing tension. It means amplifying stress. This is why most avoid it. This is why most settle. This is why most remain common. Your standards must become your signature. When I ruled France, everyone knew what working with Napoleon meant. It meant precision, it meant excellence, it meant standards that others thought impossible. Your name must carry the same weight. Your presence must demand the same excellence. Here's the iron law of standards. What you tolerate, you encourage. What you accept, you promote. What you allow, you endorse. Every time you permit mediocrity, you create more of it. Every time you accept average, you produce more of it. Every time you tolerate subpar, you guarantee more of it. Make excellence your only acceptable currency. Make exceptional your new normal. Make extraordinary your starting point. For when your standards become uncompromising, your results become unprecedented. Remember? History remembers those who demanded more, not those who demanded more from others, but those who first demanded more from themselves. Your standards are not just requirements, they are your revolution. They are not just metrics, they are your manifesto. Your empire awaits its standards. Your future awaits its requirements. Your greatness awaits its demands. Raise them now. Raise them ruthlessly. Raise them relentlessly. For when you make excellence your only acceptable standard, mediocrity becomes your only impossible outcome. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you one of the most crucial lessons of empire building, the art of ruling your inner circle. When I rose to power, I understood that an emperor is only as strong as the minds he gathers around him. Your inner circle is not merely a group, it is the foundation of your empire. Most people collect friends. Leaders build councils. Most people seek comfort in their connections. Emperors seek capability. This is why most remain ordinary while few rise to rule. Your inner circle must be governed with the same strategic precision with which you would govern a nation. Let me be direct. The quality of your inner circle will determine the height of your rise. When I selected my marshals, I didn't choose them for their pleasantness. I chose them for their potential. When I appointed my advisors, I didn't seek friends. I sought excellence. This must be your standard. Here is how you build and rule an inner circle worthy of empire. First, understand that every relationship is a strategic position. When I organized my government, each role was filled based on capability, not comfort. Your inner circle must be constructed the same way. Every position must serve a purpose. Every relationship must advance the empire. Second, establish your circle's hierarchy. In my military council, every marshal knew his place, his power, and his purpose. Your inner circle must have equal clarity. Who leads what? Who decides what? Who influences what? This is not about ego, it's about efficiency. Third, maintain strict standards of entry. I promoted generals based on merit, not birth. I elevated advisors based on results, not relations. Your circle must have equally rigorous criteria. What qualities are required? What capabilities are essential? What contributions are mandatory? Here's what separates rulers from the ruled. The ruled accept their connections. Rulers select their circle. The ruled maintain relationships. Rulers build alliances. The ruled seek friendship. Rulers seek excellence. Consider this. Every great empire in history was built not by a single mind, but by a carefully curated circle of minds. My French Empire wasn't just my creation. It was the product of strategically selected generals, administrators, and advisors. Your empire requires the same deliberate design. You must understand, your inner circle is not a social club. It is a war council. When I met with my marshals, we didn't discuss pleasantries. We discussed conquest. Your circle must have the same focus. Every meeting, every conversation, every interaction must advance the empire. Let me tell you something about inner circles that few understand. They must be governed by law, not emotion. I had clear protocols for my advisors, how they communicated, how they contributed, how they conducted themselves. Your circle needs the same structure. Friendship is optional. Excellence is mandatory. Here is your protocol for ruling your inner circle. First, Audit your current circle. Who adds value? Who drains energy? Who advances the mission? Who impedes progress? Be ruthless in your assessment. Every weak link in your circle is a vulnerability in your empire. Second, establish your circle's constitution. What are the rules of engagement? What are the standards of conduct? What are the requirements for continued inclusion? Write these laws down, make them known, enforce them consistently. Third, create your circle's culture. What values are non-negotiable? What behaviors are rewarded? What actions are punished? Culture isn't accidental. It's architectural. Design it with imperial precision. Remember this. The strength of your empire will be determined by the quality of your inner circle. When I conquered Europe, it wasn't just my strategy. It was the combined excellence of my carefully selected team. Your achievements will be limited or multiplied by those you gather around you. I will tell you now what I learned from building and ruling my inner circle. Loyalty without capability is useless. Friendship without contribution is irrelevant. Relationship without results is wasteful. Every position in your circle must be earned through excellence and maintained through performance. This is not comfortable work. Ruling a circle means making hard decisions. It means removing those who don't meet standards. It means prioritizing mission over emotion. This is why most avoid it. This is why most settle. This is why most circles remain social instead of strategic. Your circle must become your instrument of empire. When I ruled France, my inner circle was not just a group of advisors. It was a precision tool for expanding power and executing strategy. Your circle must serve the same purpose. Every member must be a carefully chosen asset for empire building. Here's the iron law of circles. You will become the average of the 5 people closest to you. But here's the emperor's addition. You can choose and change those 5 people. You can select and shape your circle. You can design and direct your influences. Make excellence your only criteria for inclusion. Make contribution your only measure of value. Make results your only basis for retention. For when your circle becomes a carefully curated council of excellence, your empire becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Remember, history remembers singular names, but empires are built by strategic circles. Your rise will be determined not just by your own excellence, but by the excellence you gather around you. Your circle is not just your support system, it is your empire's foundation. Your inner circle awaits its constitution. Your empire awaits its council. Your future awaits its architects. Choose them now. Rule them well. Lead them strategically. For when you govern your circle like a nation, you build not just relationships, you build empire. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the most fundamental truth of leadership I learned on the battlefields of Europe. True power flows not from commands, but from example. When I led armies across the Alps, I walked with my men. When we faced hardship, I shared their struggles. This is not nobility. This is necessity. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire will be built not on what you say, but on what you do. When I took command of the army of Italy, it was not my words that transformed a ragged force into an unstoppable machine. It was my actions. I slept on the ground. I ate their rations. I shared their dangers. Most who seek to lead do so from behind desks, through memos, via commands given from comfortable distances. This is not leadership. This is administration. This is why they never inspire loyalty. This is why they never build empires. This is why their troops desert at the first sign of battle. Here is how you lead through fearless example. First, understand that every action you take is a command. When I studied maps late into the night, my officers studied longer. When I rode at the front of the column, my soldiers marched faster. When I maintained discipline, my army became disciplined. Your every move is instruction. Second, embrace the front line. I didn't direct battles from distant hills. I led charges. I didn't delegate danger. I faced it. Your position must be where the action is most intense, where the risk is highest, where the example is most needed. Leadership from comfort is not leadership at all. Third, master visible excellence. Every skill you demand from others must be visibly mastered by you. I didn't just order artillery strikes. I was the finest artillery officer in Europe. Your expertise must be evident, your competence must be clear, your mastery must be manifest. Here's what separates true leaders from mere commanders. Commanders give orders, leaders give example. Commanders demand respect, leaders earn it. Commanders speak of sacrifice, leaders demonstrate it. Consider this: every great military achievement in history was led from the front. Alexander rode into battle. Caesar fought with his legions. I marched with my armies. Your empire, whatever its nature, demands the same fearless leadership by example. You must understand, leadership is not about position, it's about action. When I became first consul of France, it wasn't my title that transformed the nation. It was my tireless work, my visible commitment, my constant example of excellence. Your authority must be earned the same way. Let me tell you something about leadership that few understand. Fear and respect flow from the same source: demonstrated capability. When my soldiers saw me calculating artillery trajectories, when they watched me plan battles, when they witnessed my courage under fire, their loyalty became unshakable. Here is your protocol for leadership by example. First, audit your current leadership position. Where are you commanding without demonstrating? Where are you demanding without showing? Where are you expecting without exemplifying? These gaps between instruction and example are where your authority leaks away. Second, establish your visible standards. What skills must you demonstrate? What excellence must you exhibit? What mastery must you manifest? List them, master them, display them. Your capability must be so evident that it becomes intimidating. Third, create your leadership routines. How will you show rather than tell? How will you demonstrate rather than demand? How will you lead rather than command? Make these actions systematic. Make them visible. Make them undeniable. Remember this: the power of your leadership will be determined by the visibility of your excellence. When I led France, I worked longer hours than any minister, studied harder than any general, planned more thoroughly than any administrator. Your authority must be built the same way. I will tell you now what I learned from leading armies. Men will follow excellence when they see it. They will endure hardship when you endure it first. They will maintain standards when you exceed them visibly. Your example is not just inspiration, it is instruction. This is not comfortable work. Leading by example means being first to rise, last to rest. It means taking the greatest risks, facing the hardest challenges, accepting the heaviest burdens. This is why most avoid it. This is why most fail to lead. This is why most never build empires. Your leadership must become your signature. When I commanded armies, everyone knew what it meant to serve under Napoleon. It meant excellence was not just demanded, it was demonstrated. It meant courage was not just required, it was exhibited. Your leadership must carry the same weight. Here's the iron law of leadership. Your team will not rise above your example. They will not work harder than you work. They will not maintain standards you don't exceed. They will not endure what you won't face. Your personal excellence is the ceiling of your empire's potential. Make fearless leadership your hallmark. Make visible excellence your standard. Make demonstrated mastery your authority. For when you lead through consistent, compelling example, you build not just respect, you build empires. Remember, history remembers not those who gave orders, but those who led the charge. Your empire will be built not on your commands, but on your actions. Your authority will flow not from your position, but from your example. Your leadership awaits its demonstration. Your excellence awaits its display. Your authority awaits its proof. Show it now. Show it consistently. Show it fearlessly. For when you master the art of leading through fearless example, you transform not just yourself, you transform those you lead. The front line awaits its leader. The battle awaits its commander. The empire awaits its example. Be that example. Lead that charge. Show that excellence. For when your leadership becomes visible proof of your standards, your empire becomes not just a possibility, it becomes inevitable. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the military secret that transformed the French army from a disorganized mob into Europe's finest fighting force, the art of relentless training. When I took command, I discovered a truth that applies to every empire. Your performance in battle is determined long before the battle begins. Let me be absolutely clear. The size of your victory will be determined by the intensity of your preparation. When I drilled my artillery units, I didn't train them to meet the standards of the day. I trained them to exceed the standards of tomorrow. This is why we dominated every field we entered. Most people train until they get it right. Warriors train until they cannot get it wrong. Most people prepare for known challenges. Emperors prepare for unknown wars. This is why most remain perpetually unprepared. This is why most crumble at the first sign of real resistance. Here is how you train for empire. First, understand that every moment of practice is a moment of war. When I trained my gunners, each drill was treated as if the enemy watched, as if lives depended on it, as if the fate of nations hung in the balance. Your training must carry the same weight. Every practice session is combat. Second, establish wartime conditions in peacetime. I would deliberately create chaos during drills, introduce unexpected challenges, force adaptations under pressure. Your training must replicate real battle conditions. Comfort is your enemy. Chaos is your teacher. Third, maintain training intensity beyond reason. My officers thought I was mad with the pace and precision I demanded in practice. But when war came, everything seemed slower, easier, more manageable. Your preparation must be harder than your actual challenges. Here's what separates the victorious from the defeated. The defeated train until they're tired. The victorious train until they're ready. The defeated prepare for what they expect. Thus, victorious prepare for what they cannot imagine. Consider this. Every decisive victory in history was won long before the battle began. The Roman legion's precision, the Macedonian phalanx's coordination, my artillery's accuracy, these weren't developed during combat. They were forged in relentless training. You must understand. Training is not preparation. It is war fought. In advance, when I drilled my armies, we weren't practicing. We were pre-fighting every battle we would face. Your training must have the same intensity. Every session is a battle. Every practice is combat. Let me tell you something about training that few understand. The enemy is always watching. Not literally, perhaps, but the principle remains. Train as if your competitors study every move, as if your opponents analyze every practice, as if your rivals dissect every rehearsal. Here is your protocol for warrior-level training. First, audit your current preparation. Where are you training softly? Where are you practicing without pressure? Where are you rehearsing without reality? These comfortable spaces are where defeat breeds. Second, establish your combat conditions. What chaos must you introduce? What pressure must you apply? What difficulties must you create? Design training that breaks you before the real challenges. Third, create your intensity metrics. How will you measure readiness? How will you test preparation? How will you verify combat capability? Make these assessments more demanding than actual combat. Remember this. The ferocity of your training will determine the ease of your victory. When I conquered Italy, my army moved with precision that seemed supernatural to our enemies, but there was no magic. There was only the fruit of relentless training. I will tell you now what I learned from preparing armies. Sweat more in training, bleed less in battle. The more you suffer in practice, the less you struggle in combat, the harder. You train in peace, the easier you triumph in war. This is not comfortable work. Training at this level means constant discomfort, continuous pressure, relentless demand. This is why most avoid it. This is why most remain weak. This is why most never build empires. Your training must become your proving ground. When I prepared for campaigns, every drill was a test. Every practice was an examination. Every rehearsal was a trial by fire. Your preparation must carry the same intensity. Every training session must verify your readiness for empire. Here's the iron law of preparation. You will not rise to the occasion. You will fall to your level of training. You will not suddenly perform better under pressure. You will perform exactly as you have practiced. You will not discover hidden strength in battle. You will deploy what you have developed in training. Make intensity your standard. Make pressure your companion. Make chaos your teacher. For when you train as if the enemy watches, you build not just skill, you build invincibility. Remember, history remembers victories, but empires are built in training grounds. Your triumph will be determined not by what you do in the moment of challenge, but by what you have done in thousands of moments of preparation. Your training ground awaits its commander. Your preparation awaits its intensity. Your readiness awaits its test. Train now. Train harder. Train beyond reason. For when you master the art of training as if the enemy watches, you transform not just your capability, you transform your destiny. The battle is won in training. The war is decided in preparation. The empire is built in practice. Begin now. Begin intensely. Begin relentlessly. For when your training becomes more demanding than combat, your victory becomes not just likely, it becomes inevitable. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the most crucial resource in empire building that no treasury can buy: time. When I conquered Europe, my greatest victories came not just from superior strategy, but from masterful use of time. I understood something that most never grasp. Time is not just a resource, it is the ultimate general. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire will be built or broken on how you command time. When I planned campaigns, I didn't just consider troops and terrain, I orchestrated time itself. Every hour was a soldier, every minute a bullet, every second a strategic asset, to be deployed with precision. Most people spend time. Leaders invest it. Most people let time pass. Emperors make it serve. This is why most remain slaves to the clock, while few become masters of their destiny. Your relationship with time must shift from subject to commander. Here is how you master the strategic use of time. First, understand that time is your most lethal weapon. When I outmaneuvered larger armies, it wasn't just through superior tactics, it was through superior time management. I could deploy forces faster, react quicker, seize opportunities sooner. Your mastery of time must be equally decisive. Second, establish your temporal command center. I knew the exact timing of every military movement, every diplomatic action, every strategic initiative. Your empire requires the same precision. Where is every minute going? How is every hour being invested? What is every day achieving? Third, maintain ruthless time discipline. In my campaigns, delays meant death. In your empire building, procrastination is equally fatal. Every moment must be accounted for, every hour must be maximized, every day must advance your position. Here's what separates conquerors from the conquered. The conquered serve time. Conquerors command it. The conquered watch the clock. Conquerors weaponize it. The conquered complain about time. Conquerors capitalize on it. Consider this. Every empire in history was built by masters of time. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built every day. My French Empire wasn't created in a moment, but every moment was used in its creation. Your empire demands the same temporal mastery. You must understand. Time is not neutral. It is either working for you or against you. When I reformed France's institutions, every day without progress strengthened resistance. Your time must be equally aligned. Every hour must serve your empire, or it serves your opponents. Let me tell you something about time that few understand. It is not the quantity of time that determines victory. It is the strategic deployment of it. I won battles not because I had more time, but because I used time more effectively. Your success will be determined not by how much time you have, but by how you command it. Here is your protocol for temporal dominance. First, audit your current time deployment. Where are your hours being wasted? Where are your minutes being squandered? Where are your seconds being surrendered? These temporal leaks are where your empire bleeds power. Second, establish your time war room. How will you track every hour? How will you measure every investment? How will you verify every temporal return? Create systems as precise as military logistics. Third, create your temporal battle plans. What must be accomplished each quarter, each month, each week, each day, each hour? Make these targets non-negotiable. Make these deadlines sacred. Remember this: the speed of your empire's growth will be determined by your mastery of time. When I transformed France, it wasn't just through brilliant policies. It was through relentless execution, timed to perfection. Your achievements will rise or fall on the same principle. I will tell you now what I learned from commanding armies. Time is either a multiplier or a divider. Used strategically, it multiplies your efforts. Wasted, it divides your impact. Every moment must be deployed with the same precision as military units. This is not comfortable work. Mastering time means sacrificing leisure, eliminating waste, maximizing every minute. This is why most avoid it. This is why most drift. This is why most never build empires. Your relationship with time must become your strategic advantage. When I led campaigns, my armies moved with timing that seemed supernatural to our enemies. But there was no magic. There was only absolute. Mastery of temporal resources. Here's the iron law of time. You cannot create it, but you can command it. You cannot produce more of it, but you can extract more from it. You cannot stop its march, but you can direct its deployment. Make time your ultimate weapon. Make minutes your military units. Make hours your strategic assets. For when you master the art of temporal warfare, you transform not just your efficiency, you transform your destiny. Remember, history remembers achievements, but empires are built on the masterful use of time. Your legacy will be determined not by the time you had, but by how strategically you deployed it. Your temporal campaign awaits its commander. Your minutes await their orders. Your hours await their mission. Command them now. Command them precisely. Command them relentlessly. For when you master the art of temporal warfare, you transform time from your master into your most loyal general. The clock is not your ruler, it is your weapon. Time is not your constraint, it is your conquest. Every second is a soldier awaiting your command. Deploy them wisely, deploy them strategically, deploy them victoriously. For when you command time like the ultimate general, your empire becomes not just possible, it becomes unstoppable. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the strategic principle that funded my campaigns and built my empire, the art of financial fortification. When I rose to power, I understood that wealth was not merely money, it was military. Might, political power, and imperial foundation combined. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire's strength will be determined by its financial fortifications. When I reformed France's economy, I didn't just collect taxes, I built financial strongholds. I didn't just manage money, I created economic fortresses. This must be your approach. Most people treat wealth like a resource to be spent. Emperors treat it like territory to be defended. Most people focus on earning. Leaders focus on fortifying. This is why most remain financially vulnerable, while few build lasting empires. Your approach to wealth must be strategic, not tactical. Here is how you build wealth with military precision. First, understand that every financial position is a military position. When I established the Bank of France, it wasn't just a financial institution. It was an economic fortress. Your wealth must be equally fortified. Every asset must be defended. Every investment must be secured. Second, establish your economic battle lines. I created multiple lines of financial defense: treasury, taxation, trade, and monetary policy. Your wealth requires the same layered protection. What are your primary defenses, secondary positions, final fortifications? Third, maintain constant financial surveillance. In war, I had scouts monitoring every approach. Your wealth needs the same vigilance. Where are the threats? Where are the opportunities? Where are the vulnerabilities? Here's what separates the financially powerful from the financially weak. The weak focus on spending. The powerful focus on fortifying. The weak think about consumption. The powerful think about construction. The weak manage money. The powerful build financial empires. Consider this: every great empire in history was built on financial foundations. As solid as their military ones, Rome's roads were paved with economic might. My French Empire was built on fiscal discipline as much as military prowess. Your empire demands the same financial fortification. You must understand, wealth is not about luxury, it's about leverage. When I funded my campaigns, it wasn't for comfort, it was for conquest. Your wealth must serve the same purpose. Every dollar must be a soldier. Every investment must be a strategic position. Let me tell you something about financial empire building that few understand. It's not about how much you make. It's about how well you fortify. I've seen great fortunes lost through poor defense and modest resources multiplied through strategic protection. Here is your protocol for financial fortification. First, audit your current financial defenses. Where are your resources exposed? Where are your assets vulnerable? Where are your wealth positions weak? These gaps in your financial fortress are where enemies will strike. Second, establish your defensive layers. What protects your primary wealth? What secures your cash flow? What guards your assets? Build these defenses with the same care you would build military fortifications. Third, create your financial battle plans. How will you respond to economic attacks? How will you handle market sieges? How will you protect against financial ambush? These scenarios must be planned for before they occur. Remember this: the durability of your empire will be determined by its financial foundations. When I built France's economy, it wasn't just about generating wealth, it was about protecting it, multiplying it, and deploying it strategically. I will tell you now what I learned from funding armies. Resources that aren't fortified are resources already lost. Wealth that isn't defended is wealth already surrendered. Assets that aren't protected are assets already captured. This is not comfortable work. Building financial fortresses means constant vigilance, regular reinforcement, continuous improvement. This is why most avoid it. This is why most remain financially vulnerable. This is why most never build lasting empires. Your approach to wealth must become your strategic signature. When I managed France's finances, everyone knew what Napoleonic economic policy meant. It meant stability, it meant security, it meant strength. Your financial management must carry the same weight. Here's the iron law of financial empire building. Attack wins battles, but defense wins wars. Making money is important, but protecting it is crucial. Generating wealth is necessary, but fortifying it is essential. Make financial security your obsession. Make economic defense your expertise. Make wealth protection your mastery. For when you build wealth like a fortress, you create not just riches, you create empires. Remember, history remembers the wealthy, but empires are built by the financially fortified. Your legacy will be determined not by how much wealth you acquire, but by how well you protect and deploy it. Your financial fortress awaits its commander. Your economic defenses await their architect. Your wealth positions await their strategist. Build them now. Build them strong. Build them to last. For when you master the art of financial fortification, you transform not just your wealth, you transform your destiny. The battlefield of wealth awaits its general. The war of financial empire building awaits its commander. The victory of economic dominance awaits its architect. Fortify now, Fortify strategically, fortify relentlessly, for when you build wealth like a fortress, your empire becomes not just rich, it becomes unconquerable. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the strategic principle that transformed the chaos of revolution into an empire, the art of chaos mastery. When I took control of France, it wasn't just a nation I was commanding, it was pure chaos. But I understood something essential. Chaos is not your enemy, it is your opportunity. Let me be absolutely clear, your greatest power will emerge from your ability to master chaos. When others panic, you must plan. When others retreat, you must advance. When others see disaster, you must see opportunity. This is how empires are built from ruins. Most people fear chaos. Leaders harness it. Most people avoid disorder. Emperors transform it. This is why most remain victims of circumstance, while few become masters of destiny. Your relationship with chaos must shift from fear to strategy. Here is how you master the strategic use of chaos. First, understand that chaos is pure potential. When I found France in revolutionary turmoil, I didn't see disaster. I saw raw material for empire. Your challenges must be viewed the same way. Every crisis is a building block. Every problem is a possibility. Second, establish your chaos. Protocols. In battle, I had specific procedures for when formations broke down. Your empire needs the same systematic approach to disorder. How will you respond to disruption? How will you capitalize on confusion? How will you profit from pandemonium? Third, maintain strategic clarity in tactical chaos. While my enemies lost their heads in the fog of war, I kept my vision clear. Your focus must be equally unshakable. What remains constant in change? What endures in upheaval? What can be built from breakdown? Here's what separates chaos masters from chaos victims. Victims see disorder. Masters see ingredients. Victims feel overwhelmed. Masters feel opportunistic. Victims seek escape. Masters seek advantage. Consider this. Every significant empire in history was built during or immediately after periods of chaos. Rome rose from civil war. My empire emerged from revolution. Your opportunity for greatness lies not in waiting for calm, but in mastering current chaos. You must understand, chaos is not a state to be eliminated. It is a force to be directed. When I reorganized France, I didn't simply impose order, I channeled chaos into creative destruction. Your approach must be equally sophisticated. Don't fight disorder. Focus it. Let me tell you something about chaos that few understand. It is the most powerful force for transformation that exists. More energy is available in chaos than in order. More possibility exists in disruption than in stability. More opportunity lies in upheaval than in calm. Here is your protocol for chaos mastery. First, audit your current chaos responses. Where? Do you panic? Where do you freeze? Where do you flee? These reactive patterns are where your power leaks away. These are the habits that must be transformed. Second, establish your chaos command center. How will you maintain clarity in confusion? How will you find direction in disorder? How will you create strategy from chaos? These capabilities must be developed before they're needed. Third, create your opportunity protocols. What assets can emerge from this disruption? What advantages can be built from this breakdown? What power can be generated from this pandemonium? Make these assessments automatic. Remember this: the magnitude of your empire will be determined by your mastery of chaos. When I built France into a dominant power, it wasn't by waiting for calm, it was by harnessing the energy of chaos. Your achievements will rise or fall on the same principle. I will tell you now what I learned from commanding in chaos. Order is not the opposite of chaos. It is the strategic use of chaos. Control is not the absence of disorder. It is the purposeful direction of disorder. Power is not the elimination of chaos. It is its transformation. This is not comfortable work. Mastering chaos means staying clear while others confuse, staying focused while others panic, staying strategic while others react. This is why most avoid it. This is why most remain victims. This is why most never build empires. Your relationship with chaos must become your strategic advantage. When I led armies through seemingly impossible situations, it wasn't because I had less chaos to deal with. It was because I had mastered the art of using it. Your leadership must demonstrate the same capability. Here's the iron law of chaos. It cannot be eliminated, but it can be directed. It cannot be avoided, but it can be utilized. It cannot be controlled, but it can be channeled. Make chaos your ally. Make disorder your opportunity. Make disruption your advantage. For when you master the art of chaos transformation, you convert what destroys others into what distinguishes you. Remember, history remembers those who created order, but empires are built by those who mastered chaos. Your legacy will be determined not by your ability to avoid disorder, but by your capability to transform it. Your chaos awaits its commander. Your disorder awaits its strategist. Your disruption awaits its master. Command it now. Command it purposefully. Command it strategically. For when you master the art of chaos transformation, you transform not just your circumstances, you transform your destiny. The battlefield of chaos awaits its general. The war of transformation awaits its commander. The victory of strategic disorder awaits its architect. Master it now. Master it purposefully. Master it relentlessly. For when you turn chaos into calculated power, your empire becomes not just possible, it becomes inevitable. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the principle that transformed me from a minor artillery officer into Emperor of France, the art of unapologetic command. When I seized power, I didn't ask for permission. I took authority. I didn't explain my ambitions. I demonstrated them through action. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire will be built not on explanations, but on executions. When I crowned myself emperor, I didn't justify the act. I made it fact. When I reformed France, I didn't debate each decision. I implemented them. This must be your approach to power. Most people spend their lives explaining, justifying, seeking approval. Leaders act, achieve, and let results speak. This is why most remain trapped in the prison of others' opinions, while few rise to true power. Your relationship with authority must shift from seeking to assuming. Here is how you command without explanation. First, understand that power flows from action, not permission. When I took control of France, I didn't wait for consensus. I created new realities. Your authority must emerge the same way. Don't ask for power. Exercise it. Don't explain your right to lead. Demonstrate it. Second, establish your command presence. I never entered a room wondering if I belonged there. Your authority must carry the same certainty. How do you carry yourself? How do you speak? How do you decide? These are not mere details, they are the essence of power. Third, maintain absolute conviction. When I made decisions, I didn't hedge or qualify, I commanded with certainty. Your leadership must show the same resolve. No apologies, no justifications, no unnecessary explanations. Here's what separates true rulers from mere managers. Managers explain their decisions. Rulers make them. Managers seek approval. Rulers grant it. Managers justify their position. Rulers occupy it. Consider this. Every great leader in history commanded through action, not explanation. Caesar didn't explain his crossing of the Rubicon. He crossed it. I didn't explain my rise to power. I exercised it. Your authority must be equally decisive. You must understand. Explanation is often a substitute for action. When I reformed the French legal system, I didn't publish treatises about why it was necessary. I enacted the Code Napoleon. Your power must be expressed through achievement, not argument. Let me tell you something about authority that few understand. It exists most strongly in those who never question it in themselves. When I commanded armies, I never doubted my right to lead, and so neither did my soldiers. Your authority must begin with your own unshakable conviction. Here is your protocol for unapologetic command. First, audit your current power leaks. Where do you over-explain? Where do you seek unnecessary permission? Where do you justify what should simply be done? These habits of hesitation are where your authority dissolves. Second, establish your command protocols. How will you issue decisions? How will you direct action? How will you maintain authority? Make these processes clear, direct, and free of unnecessary explanation. Third, create your power positions. What authority do you naturally hold? What leadership do you rightfully claim? What command do you legitimately possess? Occupy these positions fully, without doubt or apology. Remember this: the strength of your empire will be determined by the clarity of your command. When I led France, I didn't govern through endless explanation. I governed through clear direction and decisive action. Your leadership must carry the same weight. I will tell you now what I learned from commanding armies. Those who must explain their authority have already lost it. Those who must justify their decisions have already weakened them. Those who must beg for power will never truly hold it. This is not comfortable work. Commanding without explanation means facing resistance without defensiveness, meeting challenges without justification, holding power without apology. This is why most avoid it. This is why most remain weak. This is why most never build empires. Your relationship with power must become your natural state. When I ruled France, everyone knew that Napoleon didn't explain. He enacted. Didn't justify. He achieved. Didn't beg. He commanded. Your leadership must carry the same absolute certainty. Here's the iron law of command. Power explained is power reduced. Authority justified is authority diminished. Leadership defended is leadership weakened. Make decisive action your explanation. Make achieved results your justification. Make demonstrated capability your authority. For when you master the art of unapologetic command, you transform not just your position, you transform your power. Remember, history remembers what leaders did, not what they explained. Your legacy will be built not on your ability to justify power, but on your capability to exercise it. Your authority awaits its full expression. Your power awaits its pure exercise. Your command awaits its clear voice. Express it now. Express it clearly. Express it without apology. For when you master the art of unapologetic command, your empire becomes not just a possibility, it becomes an inevitability. The throne of power awaits its rightful occupant. The mantle of authority awaits its true bearer. The crown of command awaits its destined wearer. Claim them now. Claim them fully. Claim them without explanation. For when you never beg and never explain, your empire becomes not just an ambition, it becomes your undisputed domain. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the iron law of empire that drove me from Corsica to the heights of European power. The necessity of relentless expansion. When I conquered Italy, I didn't stop to admire my victory. I planned the next campaign. When I took Egypt, I was already looking toward other horizons. This is not ambition. This is survival. Let me be absolutely clear. Your empire will either expand or expire. When I ruled France, every pause in growth became a moment of vulnerability. Every moment of satisfaction became an invitation to decay. This is the brutal truth of power. It grows or it dies. Most people seek a comfortable plateau. Leaders seek the next summit. Most people want to maintain. Emperors must expand. This is why most stagnate and slowly fade, while few continue to rise and conquer. Your relationship with growth must shift from preference to imperative. Here is how you maintain relentless expansion. First, understand that stability is death disguised as safety. When I controlled Central Europe, I didn't seek to merely hold it. I prepared for the next advance. Your empire must operate on the same principle. Every position secured must become a launch pad for the next conquest. Second, establish your expansion protocols. I had systematic approaches for assessing new territories, planning campaigns, and integrating conquered regions. Your growth must be equally methodical. How will you identify opportunities? How will you seize them? How will you consolidate gains? Third, maintain constant forward momentum. In warfare, I knew that armies that stop moving start dying. Your empire faces the same law? What territory will you take next? What market will you enter next? What position will you secure next? These questions must never cease. Here's what separates empire builders from empire inheritors. Inheritors try to maintain. Builders continue to gain. Inheritors protect what is. Builders pursue what could be. Inheritors fear loss. Builders hunger for more. Consider this. Every great empire in history fell when it stopped expanding. Rome declined when it became defensive. The Ottomans weakened when they ceased to conquer. Your empire faces the same imperative: expand or expire. You must understand, growth is not just about size. It's about survival. When I expanded French influence, it wasn't merely for glory. It was because I understood that in power, there is no such thing as standing still. You either advance or retreat. You either grow or die. Let me tell you something about expansion that few understand. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you begin to decline. When I was at the height of my power, I was planning my next conquest. Your empire must maintain the same restless advance. Here is your protocol for relentless expansion. First, audit your current growth vectors. Where have you become complacent? Where have you stopped pushing? Where have you begun to plateau? These areas of stagnation are where death begins. Second, establish your expansion metrics. How will you measure growth? How will you track advance? How will you verify conquest? Make these assessments constant and unforgiving. Third, create your next horizon strategies. What territories lie beyond your current reach? What conquests await your next campaign? What expansions will secure your empire? Plan these advances before you need them. Remember this: the size of your empire tomorrow will be determined by your expansion velocity today. When I built the French Empire, it wasn't through cautious consolidation. It was through constant advance. Your power must grow with the same relentless momentum. I will tell you now what I learned from conquering Europe. The greatest threat to any empire is not external enemies. It is internal satisfaction. The most dangerous moment is not when you're struggling to advance. It's when you think you can afford to stop. This is not comfortable work. Relentless expansion means constant pressure, continuous risk, ceaseless effort. This is why most avoid it. This is why most plateau. This is why most empires become footnotes in history. Your relationship with growth must become your defining characteristic. When I ruled France, everyone knew that Napoleon never stopped expanding, never ceased advancing, never became satisfied. Your empire must carry the same reputation for relentless growth. Here's the iron law of empire. The moment you stop expanding, you start expiring. The instant you cease growing, you begin dying. The second you become satisfied, you start declining. Make constant expansion your signature. Make relentless growth your standard. Make ceaseless advance your strategy. For when you master the art of perpetual expansion, you transform not just your empire, you transform your destiny. Remember, history remembers those who kept advancing, not those who learned to maintain. Your legacy will be determined not by what you held, but by how relentlessly you expanded. Your next conquest awaits its commander. Your next expansion awaits its architect. Your next horizon awaits its conqueror. Advance now. Advance relentlessly. Advance without cease. For when you expand relentlessly, your empire becomes not just larger, it becomes unstoppable. The territories of tomorrow await their ruler. The conquests of the future await their general. The expansions of destiny await their emperor. Seize them now. Seize them constantly. Seize them without end. For when you choose relentless expansion over slow death, your empire becomes not just great, it becomes immortal. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the ultimate measure of an emperor's greatness, the art of building for immortality. When I created the Code Napoleon, when I established the Bank of France, when I reformed the education system, I wasn't building for my time, but for centuries to come. This is the true mark of empire. Let me be absolutely clear. Your legacy will be measured not by what you achieve, but by what you establish. When I ruled France, I didn't just command armies. I created institutions. I didn't just win battles. I built systems. This must be your standard of achievement. Most people build for immediate gain. Leaders build for eternal impact. Most people think in years. Emperors think in centuries. This is why most leave no trace, while few leave legacies that echo through. Time. Your vision must extend beyond your own existence. Here is how you build for immortality. First, understand that true power lies not in what you control, but in what you create. When I established the lycée system of education, I wasn't just training current citizens, I was shaping generations to come. Your empire must have the same depth of impact. Second, establish your legacy protocols. I created systems of law, finance, and education that would function long after my reign. Your empire needs the same architectural approach. What will you leave behind? What will continue without you? What will outlast you? Third, maintain the eternal perspective. In every decision I made, I asked, not just, will this work now, but will this endure? Your planning must carry the same weight of time. How will your creations weather centuries? How will your system span generations? Here's what separates historical figures from eternal influences. Figures impact their time. Influences shape all time. Figures build structures. Influences build systems. Figures command moments. Influences command centuries. Consider this. Every truly great empire left legacies that outlived its rulers. Roman law, Greek philosophy, Chinese bureaucracy. These weren't just achievements, they were eternal contributions. Your empire must create similar immortal impact. You must understand. Legacy is not about remembrance, it's about continuation. When I created the Code Napoleon, I wasn't seeking to be remembered. I was seeking to shape the future of law itself. Your creations must carry the same forward-moving power. Let me tell you something about immortal impact that few understand. It comes not from what you take, but from what you establish. My greatest pride lies not in the battles I won, but in the institutions I created. Your legacy must be built on the same principle of establishment over acquisition. Here is your protocol for building immortality. First, audit your current creations. What are you building that will outlast you? What are you establishing that will continue without you? What are you creating that will serve future generations? These are the true measures of imperial achievement. Second, establish your legacy, architecture. How will your systems perpetuate? How will your institutions endure? How will your innovations continue? Design these structures with centuries in mind. Third, create your immortality metrics. How will you measure generational impact? How will you assess eternal influence? How will you verify lasting contribution? Make these evaluations span centuries, not years. Remember this, the magnitude of your empire will be determined not by what dies with you, but by what lives after you. When I built France's institutions, I wasn't building for my reign, I was building for the ages. Your creations must carry the same eternal weight. I will tell you now what I learned from building lasting systems. The greatest power lies not in commanding people, but in creating mechanisms that continue to command after you're gone. The highest achievement is not in winning battles, but in establishing forces that continue to win through time. This is not comfortable work. Building for immortality means thinking beyond your own time, creating beyond your own benefit, establishing beyond your own existence. This is why most avoid it. This is why most leave nothing. This is why most are forgotten. Your relationship with time must become your legacy's foundation. When I created Francis Systems, everyone knew that Napoleon built not for now, but for always. Not for himself, but for posterity. Not for his time, but for all time. Your creations must carry the same eternal intention. Here's the iron law of legacy. What you control will die with you. What you create will live beyond you. What you command will cease with your voice. What you establish will continue through centuries. Make immortal impact your standard. Make eternal influence your goal. Make generational contribution your measure. For when you master the art of building for immortality, you transform not just your time, you transform all time. Remember, history remembers achievements, but eternity preserves creations. Your legacy will be determined not by what you achieved in your time, but by what continues to achieve through all time. Your immortal impact awaits its architect. Your eternal influence awaits its creator. Your lasting legacy awaits its builder. Create it now. Create it permanently. Create it immortally. For when you build something that outlives you, your empire becomes not just powerful, it becomes eternal. The centuries ahead await their shaper. The generations to come await their benefactor. The eternal future awaits its architect. Build for it now. Build for it permanently. Build for it immortally. For when you create what outlasts you, your empire becomes not just great, it becomes immortal. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the final and perhaps most crucial lesson of empire, the art of glorious ending. When I faced defeat at Waterloo, when I confronted exile on St. Helena, I understood something vital. It is not how long you live that matters, but how magnificently you stand until the end. Let me be absolutely clear. Your final chapter will define your entire story. When I was forced to abdicate, I didn't beg for mercy. I negotiated like an emperor. When I was exiled, I didn't break. I planned new campaigns. This must be your approach to every ending, every setback, every apparent defeat. Most people seek comfortable surrender. Leaders seek glorious stands. Most people accept defeat. Emperors transform it. This is why most fade quietly while few become legends. Your relationship with endings must shift from acceptance to defiance. Here is how you master the art of standing until the end. First, understand that defeat is an event, not an identity. When I lost at Leipzig, I wasn't defeated. I was preparing for the next battle. Your setbacks must be viewed the same way. Every ending is merely a position from which to launch a new campaign. Second, establish your warrior's exit protocols. I had specific procedures for how an emperor faces adversity. Your empire needs the same noble approach to challenge. How will you face setbacks? How will you handle defeats? How will you confront endings? Third, maintain imperial dignity in all circumstances. Even in exile, I conducted myself as an emperor. Your bearing must remain equally unbroken. What standards will you uphold? What principles will you maintain? What dignity will you preserve? Here's what separates legends from footnotes. Footnotes accept their fate. Legends shape it. Footnotes end with a whimper. Legends end with a declaration. Footnotes fade away. Legends burn out in glory. Consider this. Every great figure in history is remembered not just for their victories, but for how they faced their final challenges. Caesar's Et tu, Brute, Alexander's unfulfilled dreams of further conquest, my strategic planning until the end. Your legacy will be sealed by your final stands. You must understand, endings are not conclusions. They are positions of power. When I was exiled to Elba, I didn't see an ending. I saw a new beginning. Your challenges must be viewed through the same lens. Every setback is a setup. Every defeat is a preparation. Let me tell you something about endings that few understand. They are not determined by circumstances, but by bearing. In my final years, I wasn't just a prisoner, I was an emperor writing his memoirs, planning campaigns that would never be, maintaining the dignity of my position until the end. Here is your protocol for glorious endings. First, audit your current. Responses to setback. How do you handle defeat? How do you face challenge? How do you confront endings? These reactions determine whether you'll be remembered as a footnote or a legend. Second, establish your warrior's dignity code. What standards will you never surrender? What principles will you never compromise? What bearing will you never abandon? Make these decisions before they're tested. Third, create your legacy moments. How will you transform setbacks into statements? How will you convert defeats into declarations? How will you turn endings into epicenters of new beginnings? Remember this: the power of your story will be determined by its final chapters. When I faced my end, I didn't seek pity. I commanded respect. I didn't beg for mercy. I planned campaigns. I didn't surrender my dignity. I enhanced it. I will tell you now what I learned from facing defeat. It is not the duration of your reign that matters, but the quality of your bearing. It is not how long you stand, but how nobly you face your challenges. It is not the comfort of your ending, but the glory of your stance. This is not comfortable work. Standing with dignity means refusing easy exits, rejecting comfortable surrenders, maintaining standards when compromise would be easier. This is why most fade. This is why most surrender. This is why most are forgotten. Your relationship with endings must become your final victory. When I faced exile, everyone knew that Napoleon might be defeated, but never broken, contained, but never conquered, exiled, but never surrendered. Your bearing must carry the same unshakable dignity. Here's the iron law of endings. How you stand matters more than how you fall. How you face challenge matters more than how you meet fate. How you maintain dignity matters more than how you meet destiny. Make noble bearing your final victory. Make unshakable dignity your lasting statement. Make warrior's grace your eternal signature. For when you master the art of standing until the end, you transform not just your ending. You transform your legend. Remember, history remembers not just how people rose, but how they faced their falls. Your legacy will be determined not by how long you ruled, but by how nobly you stood. Your final chapters await their author. Your ultimate challenges await their warrior. Your lasting legacy awaits its architect. Face them now. Face them nobly. Face them magnificently. For when you choose to die standing rather than live kneeling, your story becomes not just history, it becomes legend. The final battle awaits its general. The ultimate stand awaits its warrior. The lasting glory awaits its emperor. Claim it now. Claim it nobly. Claim it eternally. For when you master the art of glorious ending, your empire becomes not just a chapter in history, it becomes an eternal testament to the power of standing unbowed until the very end. And so, my fellow empire builders, I leave you with this final command: build with vision, rule with strength, and when the time comes, face your challenges standing tall. For in the end, it is not the quantity of your victories that will define you, but the quality of your bearing in the face of whatever destiny presents. The world awaits your stance. The future awaits your bearing. History awaits your final chapters. Write them well. Write them nobly. Write them standing. For when you choose to die on your feet rather than live on your knees, you transform not just your ending, you transform your entire legacy into an eternal flame that will light the path for empire builders yet to come